I-V-M.
Hey everyone, welcome to Marbles Lost and Found. I'm Zain.
I'm Avanti.
And today we're going to talk about something that I think a lot of people have a very, I won't say construed, but just slightly misinformed idea of, and that's addiction. And we want to try and get to the bottom of things like, is the substance itself that people, or vice, whatever you want to call it, is that in itself inherently bad? Or is there something else that leads to the idea of addiction in the first place?
And is addiction really a crisis of willpower? Or is it something else? And then I want to also understand a little bit about the medical model of addiction versus like the other model. I don't know what the other model is,
right.
But there seems to be another model.
Yeah, and we'll find out about that. Because so today we have a very, very interesting guest with us. His name is Yusuf Merchant, better known as Doc. And he runs a rehabilitation center on the outskirts of Kalyan, if I'm not wrong. And he also has a book out called Happiness, where he talks about his own story as well and how he dealt with addiction as he was growing up and what led to him starting this place in the first place. So, Doc, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me over here.
Yeah. So as a starting point, you know, I actually just want to very briefly touch upon what it was like for you when you were an addict and how you kind of pulled yourself out of that.
Firstly, I was never an addict.
I apologize.
And never addicted to drugs. But I like the question.
Okay.
Because I was an addict.
Right.
I had the addictive personality.
Right.
I had a tendency to do things in the extreme.
Okay.
So coming to drugs, what I would like to say is, see, the way I've seen it, I've been doing this for 37 years. I don't think there's anything wrong with drugs, you know. And if you're talking about alcohol, also is a drug in liquid form. So there's nothing wrong, because out of 10 people who drink alcohol regularly, 2 will become alcoholics, 8 cannot, even if they want to.
Right.
But I have the personality type that if I did, I would get messed. I would get into drugs. So the first thing I think we should understand about addiction, like you were saying, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it is connection. So all these kids, all these people who are not connected, they then get joined to substances. So in my understanding of addiction, I'll tell you what is a high.
Okay.
A high is any place not here.
Right.
So if I'm messed up and if I take drugs, then drugs works as a solution, which of course becomes a problem later. But I think if I'm not messed up, I don't think anything is wrong with drugs.
Right.
So nothing is wrong with drugs. Something is wrong with the people. It's like saying, you know, there are diabetics in the world. So let's ban sugar.
Right.
But sugar is not bad for most people, no? I mean, for whom it is bad, I mean, they can't take it. The other guys can take it.
Right.
So what is it? What is it that makes one person addicted to something, whereas the same person who's been through a similar life circumstance, I say similar, not the same.
No, I would say it is a personality type. Like I consider myself in the same personality type, you know. So I think there is a section of the world population, like me, who are superior misfits. You know.
What do you mean by that?
So we've tried very hard to belong to get into a straitjacket, to do things what other people do. Like, I'm a very successful doc, but if I have to go somewhere at 9, sit on a desk and come back at 5, I mean, I don't want to play.
Okay.
Right.
Because what I was told, and I think what most society is trying to do, you get up in the morning, you go to work, you finish your education, finish your work, get married, have kids, and then one day die.
It's the one path fits all.
So I'm saying, what the I mean, if that's what life is all about, I don't want to live.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I choose my own path. I mean, of course, my path, I became a doc, I wanted to contribute.
Right.
You know? Because I was too Woodstocked for the normal world, if you can put it that way.
Woodstocked, I love that. So the thing is now, I just actually want to reiterate one thing that he said that fascinated me about addiction. You know how you were talking about connection, right, Doc? I think we've all heard, and this is for our listeners especially. I think we've all heard of that infamous
TED Talk.
No, not the TED Talk. There was this 20th century or 19th century 20th century experiment where they had a rat in a cage and they had 2 dispensers of water. One was plain water and one was laced with cocaine. And then in this cage, we just see that the rat just continued to take the cocaine water until it just overdosed and died. So Then you flash forward to, I think, the 70s it was. There was this British, if I'm not mistaken, British scientist. He conducted the same experiment again, but slightly differently. What he did was he created this huge area of space.
Like a rat park.
A rat park, exactly. And what he did was, now there was not just a single rat. There were a number of different rats. There was space for them to eat. There was space for them to play. There was space for them to mate, rest, whatever. And again, in the same space, you had two dispensers. One with regular water, one water laced with cocaine. In that instance, the rats hardly touched the cocaine water.
Because they didn't need it anymore.
Because they didn't need it, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, that was my point, I mean, see, everybody who uses, I'm talking about alcohol also. I keep repeating, it's a drug in liquid form.
Right.
So whether they're taking alcohol or whether they're taking drugs, like if I had got it, I had a pretty fucked up childhood and all, I would have got hooked for sure. Because they're looking, when patients come to me, I don't even see drugs as a problem, I see drugs as a solution. And once we rob them of their solution, we have to identify the problem and fix it.
Right.
So everybody keeps, society tries to ostracize these guys, but you're making it worse for them. In a different way. What I believe is that you said there's a medical model and which is the other model. I don't know any fucking medical model. My model is the friendship model.
Okay.
Right.
I believe that nothing is more powerful than meaningful relationships and
How
connections.
do you build a meaningful relationship if you are so heavily addicted to something that you can't even step out of your house, for example?
No, but that is why there's a problem. No? But once they come into our family, I call it a family, there's no rehab.
Yeah.
Once they come into the family, there are enough processes, We travel a lot, parents are participating, we have a lot of family therapy. And slowly these guys get connections. So like if I was the patient, it would be impossible to connect to my folks. But I could connect to him.
Right.
Because there's no baggage over here.
Right.
And once I start trusting another human being, probably I can open a window a few months later and try it with my family.
Right.
Because I think that the addictive personality is super intelligent, like me, super sensitive, like me, has a problem with boredom, almost like me, which I had in the past. And that is the problem. Because they come out, they actually come out as misfits and actually they're superior. Imagine, isn't life supposed to be enjoyed also, yeah?
Sure.
You just can't keep working all the time. And I still can't understand why lakhs of people go to work smelling each other's armpits and then perform and come back the same way. It doesn't even make sense to me.
Right.
And they have to keep doing this. And I think the offshoot of this is the need for drugs, I think. Because what happens is, if I've been doing it, now I'm about 40, suppose if I'm 40, I'm going to be that general manager, I'm going to be that getting that promotion. And roughly my kid is around that time 16. And just when he needs me, I'm kind of neglecting him for my promotion. And he loses connection with me.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the fun begins. But I know a lot of people who take drugs,
Yeah.
and they're cool. There's nothing really wrong with them.
Right.
So I particularly say drugs are not bad. If drugs are bad for you, then we can talk.
Right.
Right.
So it's usually in the context of a trauma history or like a, as you say, like a disconnection with your the people who are supposed to be there for you.
Yeah, because you're very sensitive, no?
Right.
See, the idea is that sensitive has two sides, of course. One side is I get hurt very easily. The other side is I love sensation. So anyway, I love chaos.
Right.
Anyway, I love sensation, in any case. So if you're going to look at it that way, that means, I don't know, I think it's the grace of God that I'm not on drugs, man.
Right.
So I had everything right to become a drug addict. But what I'm saying is that, so if most of my patients have some kind of trauma in the past. But I think most people have some kind of trauma in the past.
However you decide to define that trauma.
If I get into that negative zone, you know what I mean? Then there's a scientific explanation. Like say if a part of my brain called the limbic system was inflamed.
Right.
It leads to negative coloring.
Okay.
So if my dad shouted at me or my dad didn't love me, I thought whatever. It leads to a negative coloring. I see the whole world that way.
Right.
So I think when you come to rehab, basically, all I do is I help these guys to believe in themselves. I don't help anybody. I don't think anyone can fucking help anyone. But I can help you to believe that you can do it. I can help you to believe that you will be happy. I can help you to believe that, you will be clean. Giving up drugs is not even the point. When people come to me, I don't even talk about drugs.
Right.
I talk about getting to be happy.
Right.
Now, I don't know how to explain it over a sound, but I'll try.
Okay.
Like if I show you this object, what is this?
It's a glass.
Because you say this is a glass. So when you say this is a glass, what actually happened, I'll tell you. In 1/10,000th of a second, the image of that object through your retina went into your brain.
Right.
In another 1/10,000th of a second, your brain checked 1 million files, sizes, shapes, colors, and came out with a pattern called glass.
Okay.
So your present is only based on your past data.
Right.
So in the past, if there is there's messy data for everyone. And if that data is not reappraised, because you can't delete,
Right.
but you can reappraise that data, it colors your present. So let's say if somebody got dished by a girl, or somebody felt unloved, or somebody was living in a single parent and felt dad didn't love him, that becomes the filter for the rest of the world.
Right.
And that's why he gets messed. And this guy, if you give him drugs, he's going to love it. Because for some time, he gets out of that zone.
Right.
You know what I mean? But for normal guys, I think some people just drink alcohol in the evening and have fun, it's cool.
Right.
But this guy won't be able to do that. Because for this guy, if he starts drinking alcohol,
He has to keep on
he
drinking.
has to keep on till he gets smashed.
Right.
Unless he has some kind of close support, like you said, the friendship model. Unless he has some kind of close supportive.
No, but once it happens,
network?
once it happens, it happens. Then
Okay.
then nothing works. So
Right.
like what I believe is that suppose a normal human being would start drinking with the addictive personality. Maybe for 5-10 years he'll be a social drinker. But when that flick happens, it's a neurotransmitter flip. His brain is now producing a chemical substance known as THIQ, tetrahydroxyisoquinoline. Then this neuropeptide increases the craving.
Right.
So that's the difference between a guy who's going to get messed and a guy who's not going to get messed. For a guy who's going to get messed, after drinking, it increases his craving to drink. Whereas the neuropeptide thing is not happening. After drinking, you feel cool.
You're fine, yeah, exactly. In fact, so now I want to ask a follow-up thing is, at what point do the people who come to you? So is it people
forced?
Yeah, they forced, or the people in their lives, or they decide on their own on their own accord to come to you?
In my rehab, it's 100% voluntary rehab. You can join on Monday, leave on Tuesday. And then we are still friends, kind of a rehab.
Right. Okay.
So most of the people come are referrals from people who have quit. So I don't think anybody forces people to come to me. Like Mr. A gave up drugs and then he tells his friend
Right.
or whatever. I mean, that's how they come. So actually they get treated even before they visit me. Because the belief is that if this could do it, I can do it.
Right.
And they believe it before they come in.
And Dr. Yusuf, sorry, I just wanted to interject with this question because, would you also count, so we've been talking about drugs and alcohol, but what about sex and masturbation?
No, sex, masturbation, gambling, porn. I mean,
everything.
Anything that is done
right.
in an excess, repeatedly.
Anything that gives you pleasure for that short period of time and
Yes.
then you keep repeating.
Yes, anything that is pleasure seeking, including lying.
That's true.
Some people find lying very pleasurable, or hiding. See, whether it is gambling, sex, drugs, alcohol, if you are an addict, there's one thing in common. There's the power of the secret that is backing you. Like, if you're married.
No, I'm not.
Okay, you're married?
No.
But suppose you were married.
Okay.
And you're having an affair.
Right.
If you would hide the girl, that's the trip. How about the girl coming home and your wife saying, okay, I'll just sit in the hall, you all guys can do what you want. You won't even get it hard, man.
Right.
So there's this power of hiding is there behind all these syndromes. It just makes you feel powerful somehow,
Right.
That,
right.
I'm using and nobody knows. And actually everybody knows.
And this concept of power, so does it mean that a lot of people who are addicted to something do feel at some level powerless in their lives? And then this kind of gives them a
Gives us
thrill
a
and a
bit of power.
power.
No, other than that, they have a lot of power because a lot of my guys, my patients, I've seen, they were good at nothing. But try to map them on a person who takes drugs or how much alcohol he can drink. They're like super great, man.
Right.
So they're good at something. I want to tell you this is pretty interesting. When I started treating drug addicts long time ago, for the first 2 years, nobody even gave up by fluke. Now it's 85%. So I realized that, I'm very good in pharmac and all that, but my dad had told me once, if you want to teach Tom French, what should you know? I said, French. He said, no, Tom. So I realized I didn't know Tom.
Actually, that's a really good point. That's a really good point, yeah.
So I really didn't know Tom. So I used to hang out with drug addicts. In those days, there were joints. There was no law also against drugs. The law came in 1984.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So at that time, the outdated Opium Act 1860 something was happening. So I was sitting in this joint with this patient of mine, and there's another guy who came next to me. And this is I'm talking about heroin.
Okay.
So the turkeys are really bad. And he pukes into a bucket, because there used to be buckets there, because you puke. And I used to tell the guys in the ward at JJ Hospital, "Ki boss, you're okay, na?" And this guy looks at me and winks. He said, "Good puke." I said, "Cool puke, man." So then I asked this guy, "What is good puke?" He said, no, it actually feels like an orgasm, The whole thing contracts and then you get a projectile.
Wow.
So that's the first thing I learned, that there can be a good puke. And then this guy, he puts his sleeve up. There's another guy who puts his sleeve up and shows me his hair standing. It's called cold turkey.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's actually got a smile on his face. He's telling me turkey. Now
Jesus.
he belongs. He belongs to the world of drugs. Do you understand what I'm saying?
What is, sorry, I didn't understand the cold turkey. What is
As in,
that?
like, he's got goosebumps.
It is the worst thing that can happen to a drug addict.
Okay.
Like for a heroin addict, if you don't take heroin, your eyes start watering, nose starts watering, pain in the stomach, pain in the joints, goose flesh, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. And this part of the goose flesh shows that you're turking, you're in withdrawal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So by saying,
Literally in that context.
turkey and being happy, he was now somebody.
Okay.
He was a drug addict. It's really trippy, man.
Yeah, that's a very heavy story, actually.
And do you, sorry, just to interrupt, do you, as someone who's worked in this, and you seem to have quite an open liberal view to it, do you ever feel that, maybe this is just this person's life and it's okay, like we don't have to try and pull them away from it?
No, I don't even try to pull anyone away. If it doesn't come to me, how does it matter to me? I mean, if his life is working, it's fine. So, I mean, most of my patients, the first question I ask him, boss, if you're happy doing what the you're doing, keep doing it. So they aren't happy, that's why they come. Because what happens, economically, it doesn't become viable after some time. And especially on coke or something. Or with coke, you might get a nosebleed. Or you start getting paranoid, in which case you need help.
Right.
So, I mean, when they come to me, it's totally voluntary. And they get very happy when I tell them it's a voluntary program. So I just tell them, boss, it's voluntary for me also. If you around, I send you back also.
Right.
It's voluntary both ways,
Right. Have you ever found any of the people who've come to you in some way relapse?
Yes. I would say that 15% of my patients relapse.
Okay.
But 85 is the best in the world. And most of these guys who relapse, are either from the Maldives, where actually in that 2 square kilometer there are 60,000 drug addicts. Or they're people where the parents haven't participated, because it's voluntary, nobody forces anyone.
Right.
Or there are people who've come there for a different agenda. Like scenes are very hot at home, everybody's, shouting and screaming. So let's get into rehab for a bit and everything will be fine.
Right.
But most of the guys give up because I have a very long-term process, man. My process lasts for about a year.
Okay.
And these guys actually live with me.
Yeah.
This place called Land.
And what is Land like? Like if we go back to the equivalent, the equivalent of Rat Park, is that kind of in the human sense what it's like?
I would say Land is more like a Woodstock scene happening minus drugs.
Okay, interesting.
Like people are non-judgmental. People are on the same scene. There are no counselors. There are no doctors. Even I don't project myself as a doc. I project myself as a friend. So actually when they fall sick, we send them to a doctor. Even though I'm a doc, I don't play doc over there.
Right.
Okay.
And it's just it's actually a wild version of the Rat Park with a hell of a lot of music in it and a hell of a lot of love and friendship.
Sounds like the Osho ashram.
No, doesn't sound like the Osho ashram. Because we have some rules in place.
Okay.
The boys and girls have to be in contact only with themselves. So there's a kind of a 6-inch rule.
Yeah.
Amazing. But actually one thing I did want to ask you as well is there also, even though we've kind of delved into this a little bit, I'm sure there's still plenty of people that believe that, drug addicts themselves are scum or they're inherently bad people. What do you have to say to that idea?
And that they just can't get through it. They can't get over it because they just haven't tried hard enough.
Yeah, it's their fault. They f***ed up their lives.
They just don't have the willpower to get over it.
I think there's nothing to do with willpower in the first place.
Yeah.
Secondly, I mean, it's so easy to judge other people, right?
So easy.
Like, I think I'm a damn good guy. And I'm a really damn good guy because that's the way I want to measure me. I have a very good value system and all. But if you ask me, as a dad to your daughter, how are you? I would give myself 10 on 10. But let's say the yardstick is only how am I with my son. It'll be 3 on 10. So I just choose to look at what suits me.
Right.
So I think everybody's equal, man. I mean, nobody's high and low. We all got different good things and negative things about ourselves. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I would just say that, I mean, firstly, why don't people look down on people who have diabetes? Hey, these assholes can't have sugar, man. The rest of the world can have sugar. Because they don't understand the concept. I think in India, mental health is in its infancy.
Yeah, completely.
People don't understand. The very fact you say, I'm going to see a psychiatrist. You pagal ho gaya lagta hai. You know?
Exactly.
Nothing about pagal. I mean, if you're sad, the best thing you can do is go and share with someone. You know. And in India, we have a lot of friends. In America, you do it at $100 an hour with a therapist. Basically, just he gets paid $100 to be a friend
and
for that hour.
And what's the healing process, if I may ask, like when you are with your patients at Land, what is the healing process like? Like how do you essentially what is
it
the program
Alcoholics Anonymous?
No. See, what I do is I'll tell you in brief. I follow the WHO definition of health. Health is defined not merely as the absence of disease or infirmity, but a state of complete physical, mental, social, and spiritual well-being. So we work on the physical plane, mental plane, social plane, and spiritual plane. So basically what we have is we believe, and it's true, that the brain can be rewired. The two simple rules in neuroscience.
Right.
The neurons that fire together, wire together. Rule number 2, the neurons that do not fire together, do not wire together anymore.
Right.
So what we do is, we are doing a sequence of exercises, different exercises every day. Like on one day, say if you were in the program, we would be paired and do catharsis.
Right, okay.
I can think of my dad shout at you, what the finish an unfinished conversation.
Right.
So all the negativity that is trapped within them stays trapped within them. So it has a outlet.
Right.
One day they teach them processes like anchoring. Think of the good moments in your life. And till it becomes a habitude and starts precipitating an attitude of gratitude. Because that's when your thing shifts from what I don't have to what I have.
What you have, yeah.
And I think, so it's a long process. I travel with the guys. We're just going to Paris now. Tomorrow morning, some of them.
That's awesome.
So I keep traveling. I just show them how beautiful the world is, man. And a lot of emphasis is there on connecting someone from their family to themselves. Because they're totally disconnected.
Right.
Yeah.
Because most parents have this thing about their kids, I wouldn't do this if I were you. They don't understand that I am not you.
Yeah.
At some level.
That's a very big thing, yeah.
At some level, the umbilical cord is not cut.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these guys get missed. And most of my kids, either they have a problem with their dads, or they are living with a single parent being the mom, or they have a dad who's very busy and not at home, if it's a normal family.
Right.
Or, interestingly, the mother is the dominating person in the house.
I see.
That is up to 82% of my guys. And I'm talking longitudinal study over 37 years.
I see.
It didn't happen in 1 year or 2 years.
Right.
I don't know why it is happening, but at this point, sometimes it amazes me, My youngest patient in rehab is a 13-year-old girl.
Okay.
Now, she must have started at 10.
Wow.
And so how come, nobody's aware that this is happening in the house?
Wow.
Simply because I think parents are very busy doing what they're doing. So the kids are just freaking out.
Right.
And generally when parents can't give you time, they give you a lot of perks.
Money.
Right.
And that's what, gives you easy access to this.
Exactly.
But I think if the person would go through the normal system anyway, he would evolve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think drugs per se is not an issue at all. It's people who have the addictive personality or people who are in trouble, they should not take drugs.
Right. So that's why, and the drug crisis in Punjab, right, as well. I think it's systemic. There's low rates of employment. There's just general nothing to do with themselves. So would you say that's also, that's a form of disconnection?
Yeah.
But for, Punjab, a tablet or a sniffable thing would be, or alcohol, would be very high. Because for them, fire is sacred. So they'll have to trip on something, man.
Right.
So they trip on all this stuff coming in.
Yeah.
Right, I see. In fact, so I actually want to ask one question which might be slightly more personal, but again, based off, your story, as you said so in the book. How did you come to a point where you realized that you needed to figure your own shit out and what?
No, see, for me, what happened was, I mean, I told you I was a superior misfit.
Right.
So my dad had his export house and I wanted to be a doctor.
Right.
So his favorite line to me would be, Beta, doctor kitna kamata hai? And I was not in that zone anyway to kitna kamata hai. I wanted to enjoy my life. I didn't want to come out and die. You know, so he threw me out of the house.
Right.
So actually, when he threw me out of the house,
That's
I think...
quite fascinating that an Indian parent threw a kid out because he
wants
wanted to be a
doctor. No, he thought that, I mean, maybe I'll go on my knees or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think even for me, I had the same identity crisis like that Turkey fellow.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just that, I mean, I had to become a dog in order to survive.
Right.
And I was pretty good at being a parasite. So once I came into your house, I would not leave till you really fucking pound it hard. Then I'll go to another guy. So in the hostel, I was a parasite living with people and all.
Right.
I think it is just by chance because one of the people I was giving, students I was giving tuitions to become a doctor, I had to fund myself. This guy became a drug addict.
Oh.
And also his parents came to me when I was in my internship. So I took him in for detox. I didn't know who helps drug addicts and all. I was not in psychiatry that time, I was just an MBBS. I put him into JJ ward. When he went back home after 1 week, I saw a tear in his mom's eye, Thank you, beta, for saving my life. I said, nobody's ever thanked me, man. This is what I want to do. I got my calling.
Right.
This is what I'm going to do.
Right.
But anyway, 10 days later, this guy started using again. And anyway, I went into the ward. Right? So I think that when I started the rehab, I found my flock. I found guys who were superior misfits like me. And that's when I settled down.
Right, I see. Wow, I think this was honestly a really interesting conversation. And I think that was a good way to kind of just like wrap it up. Thank you so much, Doc, for joining us today. It's been...
Thanks a lot. And thank you, producer Janam.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you, Avan.
Thank you.
This has been great. Okay, thank you everyone for listening, by the way. I'm Zain.
I'm Avanti.
And we'll see you next time on Marbles Lost and Found.
See
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Satyajit.
Hi, I'm Racheta.
We are from the Open Library Project and we host a podcast called Paperback.
Paperback is a podcast where we engage with stalwarts and experts from various industries, suggesting non-fiction titles that contributed to their journey in a big way.
We've had guests like Anjali Raina, Dr. Marcus Rani, Dr. Swati Lodha, Ambi Parmeswaran, Apurva Damani, and many more on our show Paperback. Find new episodes every Wednesday on IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
नमस्ते, मैं हूँ सौरभ चंद्रा
और मैं प्रणय कोटस्थाने।
जब महफिल खत्म होते होते दरवाजे के बाहर पुलिया के ऊपर हम दुनिया भर की जटिल समस्याओं को सॉल्व करने में लग जाते हैं तो हो जाती है पुलियाबाजी।
अब आजकल के अपार्टमेंट वालों ने तो कभी पुलिया देखी नहीं होगी, पर आप फीलिंग तो समझ ही सकते हैं।
तो आइए शामिल हो जाइए हमारी पुलियाबाजी में, जहां प्रणय और मैं एक से एक इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक्स की तह तक जाएंगे।
आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, बिटकॉइन, पाकिस्तान, मेडिकल एजुकेशन, करेंसी क्राइसिस, कभी हम दोनों के साथ और अक्सर स्पेशल एक्सपर्ट गेस्ट की कंपनी में।
सुनिए हमें IVM की वेबसाइट, ऐप या अपने फेवरेट पॉडकास्टिंग प्लेटफॉर्म पर हर दूसरे हफ्ते।